Ladies and gentlemen, here we are again, another session for the ACHL digital event. And every now and again, when you're presenting or you're moderating, a smile comes to your face, either because you know what the subject matter is going to be like, or it's the people that you're going to be talking to. There's the smile, and the people that we're talking to now is John Batten, Executive Vice President, EMEAA, okay, with WFS, and also Robert Fordree, Executive VP Cargo for Menzies. So we've got a brace of Executive Vice Presidents. I feel excited that this is going to be a very, very lively session. So gents, welcome on board. The subject matter is from crisis to care and genuine collaboration and initiatives. So whilst John is just having a little bit of fun there, Robert, I'd just like to start with you. Can you just give us a little bit of background, you know, not too long because we want to keep it flowing, but a little bit of background as to what have the last 3 or 4 months been like for you as a leader of an organisation going through such a terrible time?
A good question. Where do I start? Let me start first off by saying, why did you introduce John before me? Why didn't you introduce me first?
It's an age thing, Robert.
Okay, I'll accept that. Thank you. That's fine. That's fine.
If it was beauty first, you'd be there.
I can't remember the question now. No, what's the last 3 to 4 months been like? How can I describe that? Bonkers, crazy, difficult. All of those different things. It's been really, really challenging, but it's been actually quite interesting to see the way things have evolved and developed. I think somebody said a long time ago, you know, the best people deliver their best service at the worst times, and we've certainly had lots of people across our cargo network really, really stepping up. So, you know, we went through the various cycles of COVID. So we started off with a massive downturn in tons because people stopped flying. Then we saw an upturn in tons because we got passenger freighters, and we started handling cargo loads in the cabins and the like. And our people reacted to that and responded to that. And we were getting charter inquiries and then an aircraft arriving the next day. So that was crazy, and people really supported that very, very well. And we're now moving into, I guess, the next phase, which is carriers are starting to come back in terms of schedules. They're finding different ways to bring cargo volumes in as well. So we're reacting to that. But I do genuinely keep referring back to this jigsaw analogy that I've used. The pieces of our jigsaw pre-COVID, which was our perfect puzzle that is our warehouse operation, and the airlines with the jigsaw pieces, all the jigsaw pieces fitted together really, really well. Now, all those jigsaw pieces, and i.e. the carrier schedules, they're different sizes, they're different shapes, there's pieces missing, and we're trying to put all of that back together at the moment, and that's where we are right now. We've gone through that period of, goodness me, that the world is in not such a great shape. And we're now trying to piece back together something that gives us a bit of understanding about what the future holds. But it's still very, very challenging because it's changing all the time.
Yeah, no, it's been incredible, Rob. And some of the people, what they've done, like you said, has been amazing. What about yourself, John?
Exactly the same. But when you look at this COVID crisis, before that, we were in crisis as well. So this has been an ongoing crisis for the last 2 years. The volumes have been going down, actions have been taken with governments, with the business. It's been a tough 2 years for everybody, but it's nice to see how adaptable our people are. So we've gone through exactly the same that Robert's gone through, and the upside is our people, and that's the common thread across all of the companies. I think the people have stood up when the crisis has happened, and there's a lot being done, and there's a lot of good things that have been done in each of the companies to overcome the adversity that's in the market at the moment.
Yeah. And as leaders, the pair of you, there's had to be difficult decisions with, I don't refer to it now as downsizing or right sizing, but it's practical sizing, because the industry has had these changes imposed on it because of consumer confidence, the impact of stopping flights, etc. But as two leaders, I mean, you must have faced some tough times with your teams. John?
We have, Chris. If you look, in some places, the volumes dropped overnight by 100%, 95% in some places. After you got a little bit of stabilization, you were running 70% behind your budgeted numbers. So there's been a lot of hard decisions, and there's been decisions made by people that have surprised me. Some of the people that have exited the company have made some huge sacrifices, and they've come up with some really positive things and volunteered. A number of them volunteered to go because they knew what the situation was. It's been a roller coaster of a ride. 3 months of up and down, and you look at how people have adapted to, and there's been some hard decisions. You can't get away from that, especially where you have passenger operations, and no volumes coming in. But as Robert said, the ghost flights, the passenger freighters coming in, did help. And it came in at the right time. It started building a bit of confidence back into the cargo volumes. But we haven't seen the last of it. That's the ironical part. We've gone through a resizing, and we're going to have a second wave. If you look at Paris, it's nearly in the red zone again now.
Yeah.
And things are going to be happening here, and it's going to stop flights.
Yep.
There was some good news yesterday that there could be a bubble flight between New York and London. Excellent news. But if the rest of Europe is going into a second wave, which is becoming increasingly possible, we're going to go through another downturn.
Definitely, and it's definitely going to happen. Anybody who thought it wouldn't, but I think it's going to come in a different way, because the mix between therapeutics and medical care and lessons learned, it's going to have a different impact on people. But there's definitely going to be a second wave. Now, Rob, as far as being a man I know very well, some of those tough decisions as a leader, what lessons has it taught you, or what has been a big surprise to you?
I think first off, we began with trying to react to a situation that just appeared, flights stopping overnight, basically. And I think most global handlers have been in a similar place. To be fair, we've had some really, really great support from governments around the world. We talk about staff being furloughed in the UK. I don't know if that's just a UK terminology, but there's different government schemes around the world. And that's really helped us as a business in supporting our employees as well. So, we've certainly not gone through, on the cargo side, the amount of sort of permanent redundancies as there's been across the rest of the aviation sector. So I don't want to say we've been shielded from that, but certainly the government support that we've had has helped that significantly. But that's not to say that we haven't had to make some cuts that we under normal circumstances we wouldn't like to make. And I think probably the learning from that is the ability to be able to communicate to our employees and to give them as much information in a transparent way as possible. People understand, and certainly when we were putting some employees onto furlough, particularly in the UK, they were very, very understanding. They were very, very supportive of what we were trying to do. We made clear that we were trying to protect as many jobs as possible. So people are understanding the sacrifices that need to be made, whether it's a business or an individual decision. So to be fair to the people that we've been working with, the hard decisions have been made easy by the reaction of the people and how they've been working with us.
Yeah, no, it's amazing, and at this particular point, a little bit of recognition and respect to everybody that's been affected. And one of the initiatives we're trying to do with this conference as well is how do you keep people who've been displaced through no fault of their own from an industry that they love? How do you keep them involved and included and communicated to? So there's an initiative we're trying to put across, which obviously I'll be looking for the two of you to hopefully support as well. Now, putting things forward, and with governments and airports and consumer confidence and confusion, one of the things that's been lacking is clarity, being decisive, and having clear actions. And even from WHO, firstly saying masks weren't that important, now to everybody being told, of course they are. I mean, some of that lack of common sense beggars belief. I'm not asking you two to comment on that. That's I can say that. I think they've been an absolute bunch of, I can't even describe the word, where logic should have prevailed. Now, with this second wave, there's going to be a need for some of the lessons learned and the rapid ramp up and the flexibility that's going to be shown. There's going to be a need for decisive decisions and clarity. Now, something that we've been speaking about with other panelists is documentation. Okay, so we're trying to keep people apart. We're trying to protect them. Yet you look at documentation from a remote point at any airport to coming up to the dock, to going into a reception area, to the docks going through the process. So not covering now the old e-commerce argument and why and everything, but if ever there was a catalyst now for that change, it's the hygienic argument. So one of the things I've been saying to airports is, why don't they just say from such and such a date, we will no longer accept physical documentation? How would you guys be fixed with a disciplined approach to that and a sort of a directive?
It's not the airline, it's not the airports, it's the airlines in most cases. I would embrace it, and Robert will as well, I'm sure. But
there you go, Rob. You've been told.
No to e-freight, the better.
Yeah. So you're 100% behind that, John, aren't you?
Always have been, and it's been a frustration for a number of years. But some of the things that we're doing, within WFS is, in Frankfurt, we've had to do different lines for different purposes to keep the social distancing and to keep the speed up. But there was a lot of small trucks. You can only have one person unloading the truck. So you don't want to delay people in a queue to do their paperwork. If we had all the paperwork electronically, you could assign a door to them. They could go straight to the door. You take away a lot of touch points.
Yeah.
It's a frustration. And you could spend 2 hours talking about this frustration.
Yeah, but the clarity is you would support it.
Definitely support it.
Rob?
We're giving discounts to people who are doing e-freight.
Who are?
We're giving discounts to customers who are doing e-freight.
Yeah, there should be penalties for those who don't.
We are introducing those as well, Chris.
I
was doing the upsides.
We would support the implementation of that 100%, Chris. I think there's very, very few people in the industry that you'll ask that question to that will say no. We want to carry on with paper. It makes a lot more sense. For so many reasons, it makes sense to go paperless. Sounds like a crazy thing because we were talking about that 20 years ago. But the implementation of e-freight is an absolute must.
We have to ask the question: why haven't they done it?
Well, this is what I was going to come to. So I think your point was correct. It's not the airports. It's generally the airlines. I think it's partially some of the forwarders as well. And this is where it gets difficult because you and I will join a forum like this, John, and we will put forward, we have to do this as an industry. We will get supporters from global carriers that will say, yes, we're driving it. We'll get supporters from global forwarders who will say the same thing. But that's not the only part of our business. There are hundreds of carriers out there. There are thousands of forwarders out there. And we need all of those people to join forces to drive e-freight implementation. That's the reason that it's not being implemented in the way that we want it to be, because we can't get all of those different people joining up. And I know there's been some degree of success because bigger carriers and bigger forwarders have delivered solutions that enable them to be paperless. But from a handler's point of view, we will only see the benefit of that when everybody is on board, because otherwise, as John was describing, we end up with two different processes. that we have to put labour against, because there's two different expectations. If we move entirely paperless, game changer, complete game changer for us. But it's the challenge of getting to that place. And whilst I think the social distancing and the hygiene piece will add weight to the argument, those that haven't jumped on the bandwagon already in terms of e-freight will struggle to jump on the bandwagon, regardless of whether it's hygiene requirements or operational.
Which is why at some point in time, tough decisions have to be made by tough people for tough outcomes, and somebody's got to do it. The reason I was referring to airports is they could be responsible for their own ecosystem, their own community, and they could make certain issues, a prerequisite of doing business in that particular airport.
I think if you had the customs authorities in those airports, 100%, that's the key.
Yeah, but 100%, because all this blue ink on a certain invoice and black this, but it's ridiculous. So people really, really need to do that. Now,
Chris, you go back to the IATA initiative.
Yeah.
IATA were pushing for all of the customs authorities to do the right thing and accept the airway bills. If you recheck that now, a lot of them have revoked what they agreed before because it was never done. So the industry is also at fault. And there was what's in it for me approach years ago. I don't know if that's still there, but I've got machines being lined up to go into production in a number of places across the network to facilitate this. And we've got a big drive on it at the moment to bring it in as an initiative for next year. It was going to be this year, but COVID stopped it.
Yeah. No, I agree with you both, but there has to come a point where you're not going to please all of the people all of the time for all of the reasons. So for the good of the industry and for the good of moving forward, people have got to make a tough decision. We were talking to some people earlier and we were talking about carrot and stick. And I said, at the end of the day, you need a common sense baseball bat, and you just need to put it on people's desks to look at every now and again and say, right, should I or shouldn't I? Yes, I should. Move it forward. And we need to be doing things as dynamic as that now, because, so many people losing jobs doesn't make sense. So many other workarounds don't make sense. And also now putting our valuable people at risk doesn't make sense. Another point I'd like to put to you both. As a GHA, you've got your main contract with a carrier, but you've got your main interface with the forwarders. Do you think that there should be a closer openness and almost like agreement, KPIs, whatever you want to call it, SLA between yourselves and forwarders, so that there was also a more streamlined and effective process with regards to things like ready for carriage, on-time delivery, slots, etc.? Rob?
Are you talking about that being contracted with a forwarder, or?
Obviously it couldn't be contracted as we know contracts, because you're getting your business, but in certain ways from almost like a service practice or a service delivery, so it becomes a little bit more dynamic and responsive. Do you think there's scope there for a change?
Look, there's always scope for a change. There's always scope for improvement and enhancement. The challenge from a GHA perspective is always, if you have a mix of airline customers, those airline customers have different thoughts and different concepts about SLAs and about engagement with their customers as well. So, we could approach one particular customer in one particular location, an airline customer, to talk about this concept, engaging with forwarders, and they would be 100% supporting it. And we could go to the next carrier and they'll say, no, we don't support that. We don't want to tell forwarders what they need to do. They're our customer, so we kind of let them do what they think is the right thing to do. So you've always got these differences of opinion. But I think at the same time, over a long period of time, the relationship that we as a GHA have with forwarders has got better and better. I think the forwarders understand what GHAs do. We understand what forwarders do. It's not as simple as delivering or collecting. There's lots of different ways that forwarders need to operate so that they're cost effective. There's ways that we need to operate to make sure we're cost effective. And I think there's there's much more of a mutual understanding between those two parties as to what each of us needs to do than there ever was before. I think it was very much a them and us approach, and I don't feel as though it's that way now.
And on that subject, Chris,
nice one.
We've had engagement with the freight forwarders, and we have different contracts with the freight forwarders today. So it is slowly changing, and it is something that needs to be obviously enhanced as you go along. And we don't mind having KPIs with the freight forwarders as well. So I'm sure Robert will be the same. But we need to get closer. And I think many years ago, the airlines didn't want us to talk to the freight forwarders. Now they encourage it. And the freight forwarders are coming to us to do a lot more different things. And we're improving our game from that interaction as well.
On that word you just slotted in there now, John, game. And like business, very often is likened to sport. And I can see from both of your backgrounds, which one of the things that these conferencing sessions do, it shows the type of decor and focus. And I can see there you've got old Frank Lampard's shirt, and you being a Chelsea supporter. And then I can see on Robert's similar side, both over his left shoulder, he's got an Arsenal mug. So when you look at sports and you align it, a lot of training is necessary, a lot of spirit and culture and a lot of motivation. Now, as we go through this next period, which is going to be a very difficult, in my opinion, very difficult 7 months, especially Northern Hemisphere, you also need an awful lot of luck. What sort of preparation, whether it be from a QHSS&E perspective, whether it be from a crisis management, business continuity, what sort of things are you both thinking as leaders that you have to bring in to make it as acceptable and as understandable and as productive as possible? So whichever one of you would start. I probably think as Liverpool, there's a name that you wouldn't like, but I probably think that as an Arsenal supporter, Robert, you're one up at the moment against Chelsea. So if you'd like to start this one. And John, do you know something? That is something that I wish I had years ago.
What, luck, like Arsenal?
No, the mask, mate, to put across there. So Rob, let me start with you. So
John, that was such a long-winded question. I can't remember what the question was now.
No, I can't either, Robert.
Chelsea.
Yeah, I know the pair of you. The pair of you are so battle-worn, it's hard for you to retain the basic information. I'll do it very clearly. You've got
something about luck, Robert.
You've got a tough 7 months ahead of you. You've got a very, very challenging game plan. You need a little bit of luck to go your way, but you need to focus on training, the correct spirit, the right motivation for your teams. What are you working on to help them get through this next tough 7 months?
I think you answered all those things in your question, didn't you? So I'll just say all of those things you said, that's what we're doing.
It's very good. That's the luck part, Robert.
Yeah, there you go.
He asks the question and answers it. That was lucky.
You two remind me of a film I watched last night, and I'll come to that in a minute. But Rob, back to the question.
Back to the question. I'll give a sensible answer. So
go on, away you go.
It's different in different locations. So, across the world, regions are different. Sort of government regulations are different. Social distancing requirements are different. Quarantine is different. So one size doesn't fit all. But if I use Heathrow, London Heathrow as an example, we're looking at the jigsaw pieces that I referred to previously, putting those back together. In some situations, we've got a lot of cargo volumes. In some situations, we've got very little cargo volumes. The most important thing, first off, is the safety piece. So when we went through that cycle previously of cargo volumes dropping off completely and then volumes coming back, with the cabin loading that we were seeing, we had massive peaks of cargo volumes coming back and then nothing. So it was feast or famine. And of course, when you have teams that haven't been engaged and all of a sudden there's a charter flight, people jump all over it and they want to get the cargo processed as quickly as possible. the key for us is maintaining that we do that safely. And we put into place a sort of return to work plan, so that we did the social distancing properly, we did the hygiene properly, we did the safety at work briefings, we did the communication. Because remember, some people were coming back from furlough, so they hadn't been working for 6, 8, 10 weeks, if not longer. So we put into place a refresher training program as well. If you haven't driven a forklift for 2 months, you need refreshers on that. So that's some of the things that we've done in different locations. It's enhanced the training a little bit, make sure the awareness is good, and continue to tell people that safety is first. It's a situation that a lot of employees are aware of. It's a tough market right now. Volumes are down, lots of competition, need to keep hold of what we've got. So most of our teams want to do the right thing and retain the business. So they're throwing themselves into the activity, but we cannot do that in an unsafe manner. So that's probably the key thing that we've got, is that focused on safety.
All right, appreciate that. And that's also, it also answers a lot of questions that people give, where they say where people are laid off and they're not always in the right minds because of anxiety, etc. How do people maintain that safety level? So you've answered that very well, Robert. And that's always the focus in our industry: safety and security above all else.
And that's been the same for WFS, Chris. We put a BCP plan into place. We then went into phase 2, doing all the things that Robert is saying. We've now come out of that. We're just about to close the phase 2 and hand it over to HSSC to do the sanitary part of it as well. But you refresh your training and training people when they're coming back into the roles, and also doing audits of the facilities and everything else. That has been ongoing, and we've run that over both programs. And that's been key, to have every week an audit of the facility to make sure it is actually standing up to the local requirements and the HAO requirements.
No, good. Now, talking about challenges, and in the past, people have been talking about the new iPhone and whatever the fad is, or again, one of the old games that everybody loves to use. Now we're looking at the pressures from the vaccines. Now, a statistic that I was given was that even if we did half the distribution of the expected vaccines that are necessary internationally, it would amount to somewhere in the region of 8,000 freighter loads. So the logistics of handling the vaccines when they come, and the capability of facilities at airports and within your own organisations, is going to be immense. Are you working with respective airports on the capability of vaccine handling? Has that started to kick in yet?
As part of the BCP plan, yes. But when you go back to the PPE coming in, that also went, filled the warehouses, and we had to rent additional warehouses on the airport, off airport, and everything else. So yes. However, when it comes to the vaccine, you're not going to get these 8,000 freighters all in one go. How long will it take to bring the vaccine into production and to put it into the air? It's how long is a piece of string at the moment? So yes, you have some idea of what you can do for planning and what you've done with iPhones, 5 years ago when it was a big thing. But it all comes down to planning. And we don't know what the plan is. We know a vaccine may come. We don't know when it's going to come and where it's going to come from.
I think John's point is really relevant here as well. There remains so many unknowns, Chris, and we talk about wanting to be upbeat and wanting to be positive, and I think we are. I think the cargo business is still operating. There'll always be cargo flown around the world. There'll always be a necessity for that. I'm delighted that I'm part of a cargo industry, because that's always going to happen. But what is going to happen in terms of vaccines? Is it going to be in a month's time, or is it going to be in 6 months' time? Is it going to be in 12 months' time? Are the vaccines going to require temperature control? Is that temperature control 2 to 8, or is it 15 to 25, or is it ambient, or is it deep freeze? we don't know. We don't know. So in terms of the planning, yes, we can plan to say we know that there is going to be a necessity to handle vaccines that are going to be flown across the world as and when a vaccine comes into place. And we can have knowledge and experience of how we need to do that. But we don't actually know the finite detail, and the devil is always in the detail. So it's something that we're just going to have to react to as and when it happens. And if you think about the cabin loading that was done very, very quickly by the carriers after the schedule changes, you know, I know that John's done some great work in handling those kind of loads, and we did the same. Did we have ground service equipment that was perfectly aligned with what the requirements were for cabin loading? No, we didn't. Did we use ambulifts to offload cargo from the cabins? Yes.
We innovated.
Sorry?
We innovated.
We did, and that's generally what we do. You know, we react to the situation and we find a way. And it's not just Menzies, it's not just WFS. There's, you know, our competitors. We all do the same thing. And I think as an industry, we react to crises very, very well. But you can't always define exactly how you're going to react, because you don't know what you've got to react to.
But that is a really good point, though, Robert, because when this happened, the first thing on everyone's mind was the safety and security of how you could actually load and unload the cabin.
Yeah.
And that's when the innovation come in, and how could you do it? And the collaboration between different ground handlers, IATA and airlines, and Boeing and everyone else was probably the best I'd seen it for a number of years. So that really was a bright spark in this crisis.
And do you both think that, and again, a very positive thing, I think, was the way EASA, ICAO, the way they issued certain guidelines very quickly. They allowed things to be done, which closed off the skepticism and the concerns. The speed at which some of those items have been addressed has been really encouraging.
It is, Chris. It was remarkable given the history.
Yeah.
So it was refreshing that happened. But I think everyone collaborated at a different scale because of this situation. And the downturn was so big, everyone wanted to get something into the air. So it just goes to show what can be done if you have to do it.
Yeah, exactly.
And I think this will be the vaccines as well. When it comes in, we will handle it. That's what we do.
Yeah.
We'll all get together. There'll be a number of freighters. We'll be moving freighters to different places around the network. But just going back to the earlier point of preparation, we're doing an audit at the moment of all our pharma facilities, because the pharma facilities that we have today are mainly for exports.
Yeah.
How can we reverse that process and store if it is going to be different, if it does need to be controlled, temperature controlled? So we are looking at this today. Is it possible to do it? In some places it is, in other places it's not. We're talking to providers, and I'm sure Robert is as well, about a facility within a facility, a box in a box. So you could get some porta cabins in that are temperature controlled to try and overcome some of the issues. But not knowing the when, if, and how, it's very difficult. So all you're doing is some planning at the moment.
No, I was mainly referring to acknowledgement of capability and capacity, and like you just referred to there, John, about flipping it over from purely exports to imports in case there has to be some additional storage. How could it be distributed amongst airports and providers if and when the decision comes, and how they're going to roll it out. So it's just more of a...
I think just on that point, Chris, as an industry, as a cargo industry, a lot of focus in the last few years has been on pharmaceutical handling. Every conference we go to, every discussion we have, it's about, who's doing CEIV certification, who's doing GDP, who's putting into place a pharma solution in which location. So almost an unintended consequence of that is that we've actually been getting ourselves ready for that vaccine distribution as well. It's like we foresaw exactly what was going to happen.
That was the luck, Robert.
That was the luck.
That was it. Yeah.
You always need a bit of luck.
we've covered the training, the spirit, and the motivation, and everybody needs a little bit of luck. And the more you practice, the luckier you are.
There you go.
And that's why if Chelsea had practiced a bit harder, we would have won.
I'm looking over your right shoulder now, John, and I can see that wonderful occasion when you, myself, and Dave Ambridge did our little 3 tenors, but was known as the 3 fivers. So lovely to see that touch. I'm a little bit emotional now, mate, so that's brilliant.
I actually convinced my cleaner that we were the singers.
What, we were the 3 tenors?
We were the 3 tenors. Yeah.
I'm happy with the 3 fivers.
My cleaner
in say about that as well, looking like you do.
But we look beautiful in that, Robert. Yeah.
I'm not denying that you look beautiful, but you do look a dead ringer for a certain opera singer as well.
Well, that's why they put me in the middle. I couldn't understand it.
Yeah, no, it's good times there. Good times, great memories. Now, listen, lads,
and for David as well. It was a great time with David being there.
Yeah, it was. Now, listen, before we finish, what I've been asking everybody is on the theme of genuine collaboration and initiatives. I've been asking everybody so that when we do a wrap up of the whole exercise, what 3 things would you endorse or support from your side to the community? And what 3 things would you like to see the community doing to help you or enable you in a positive fashion moving forward? So I'll start with you, John, on what would you commit to or endorse or support from your side as one of the leading GHAs in the industry?
One of the things that we committed to is where we've had to let people go to bring them back. And we're also trying to support them with getting a new job as well. So that's been one of the initiatives that we've put in place wherever we can. With the community is collaborate to a higher level to get some of these things that we've been talking about for the last 20, 25 years going and put into place, but for next year. And I forgot the rest of it, Chris. You have to go on to Robert.
Right, you have a little thing.
My age, I'm 60 now. Robert's still a young man.
You have a little think. See if it comes back to you for the 3rd one. Whilst I move on to the future of the industry. So, Rob.
I like that statement, Chris. We can use that in the future. Three things is a bit difficult, but
well, that's why I failed.
Yeah, that's why you gave me a bit of extra thinking time over John as well. So before I answer those, I think just when we talk about collaboration, I wanted to I guess make clear as well to everybody that as a GHA community, I've not seen us collaborate in the way that we have done over the last few months ever before. First off, when the schedules changed, we were kind of calling each other and saying, well, what's going on in your warehouse and what's happening in yours? Are you down in the same way as we're down? Just to get confirmation that it was an industry thing and not just ourselves. And that collaboration has continued. And I'll just give one example. So in Heathrow, we were asked by one major carrier to provide them a trucking solution for a couple of weeks for varying reasons. And as a business, we couldn't provide all of that solution in one go ourselves in that short space of time. So we communicated with the rest of the GHAs, and the interim solution that was put into place in a very, very short space of time meant that 5 separate cargo handlers at Heathrow came together to provide a solution for this particular customer for an interim period. I've never seen that before. I've never seen that happen before. And it worked like a dream. Still got 2 or 3 days to go, but it worked like a dream. And it's one of the things that I'm actually quite proud of coming out of this situation, in the way that as a community we collaborated and came together. We're competitors, as you've seen from this discussion. We're quite friendly competitors. But we do come together in a crisis, and that's great. I love being part of that. Let me answer your question. So For the community, what are we doing for the community? I think I started by saying that one of the things we did most with our employees was communicate with them and keep them updated as to what was happening. And I think that's the one thing that we want to continue doing. We have significantly increased the amount of staff engagement that we've been doing. With everybody being stuck at home, there's a lot more video conferencing that is being done. We now do, well, I think we're all becoming a lot more comfortable with video. So, you know, we're kind of videoing ourselves and giving a little pep talk that's being distributed to teams across the world. And there's a lot more employee engagement we're doing, because we realize that when people are stuck at home for long periods of time, your mind starts to wander on what's happening, what will happen next week, next month, the month after. So the more information we can give to people about what is happening when we know what is happening is something that we've really been trying to do. We've also been looking at just taking the opportunity when there is downtime to do more training, to give people more coaching. We've been doing some facility enhancements around the world as well. You know, it's very difficult to put into place in a facility, a safe walking area and paint that on the floor when it's really busy and there's cargo everywhere. So we've been taking the opportunity in downtimes to try and put into place some, so a bit more enhanced safety measures and just give tidy ups to facilities that you wouldn't normally have opportunity to do. And we're also, as a community and as a business, just trying to talk to our customers much more and understand where they're coming from, understand what their expectation is for the future. Often the phone call goes along the lines of, well, we're not sure what's going to happen next month, so we'll talk about it next month. And there isn't much that we can actually talk about. But remaining engaged, remaining in communication with our customers is really, really important. And we'll continue doing that as well.
Good, very good. Now, John, do you want to touch on the items that you'd like to see coming from the community, from the industry, that would enable you to be more effective or more dynamic or more productive, whatever you'd like to call it?
I think we need to get the community together more to develop some of. We've had a number of ideas what we want to do, but we need to get the community to actually take on board what we want to do. So I want to get people together in groups as soon as we're able to do it. We were considering doing it via conference calls, Zoom and Teams and everything else. Yeah, I think the debate is too big to do that. So I said, let's wait until we've got social distance and we can get people together again. Where we have ideas and we talk to the airlines about our ideas, those ideas are further reaching than the airline and us. Yeah. So we need to get more people together to go through, and we need to put some training material around to show what the benefits are to everybody, because there are benefits to everybody in this chain. So I want to have more engagement with everyone, and I think the same as Robert. We're talking to customers about what's happening. A lot don't know. Some do know, and they're able to say we're going to do this. But it's dependent on passenger loads a lot of the time. And if the passenger loads aren't there, some of those initiatives that are happening don't happen. They happen for a couple of weeks and then they're dropped. So it really is making sure that we can communicate the expected and the unexpected live, so you don't bring people back from furlough and then have to do something you don't want to do with them.
Exactly.
Keep it as fluid as possible over this period. It's still, there's a certain amount of unknown everywhere.
Yeah,
too much. It's a lot easier, and I don't think the second wave will be as bad as the first wave. There's still a lot of unknowns, and it's all predicated by volumes.
Yeah. No, it's definitely going to come in a different form, I think. And Rob, yourself, what three items, if you'd like to see coming?
So very similar to John's thinking as well, and maybe the three I'll combine into one. maybe just one word: understanding. And I think what we've had since the commencement of the change, if you like, we've had pretty good understanding from the community. So when I talk about community, that's it's trucking providers, it's IT providers, it's handlers, it's airlines, it's any number of different logistics organisations that we engage with. When we went into the sort of lockdown situation, we had to, in some locations, reduce operating hours. We had to change some of the SLA requirements that we had. Things were different, and most of the community was very, very understanding of that. And we were also understanding of forwarders to a certain degree, where that they would be reducing their hours, so their collections would be different, their deliveries would be different. And I think as an industry, we've been very understanding of each other, knowing that we're going through a crisis, and knowing that the future is going to be different. We're not going to go back to what it was pre-COVID. We're not going to go back to what it was in 2019. The rest of 2020, the rest of into 21 and beyond is going to look different. And as long as we all have a collective understanding that every organisation needs to adjust to that, I think that's what we're looking for. And some of the things that we're doing is to put into place different things that support that. So we're looking a lot more at delivery services for imports in different locations. Something we're about to implement as a sort of proof of concept at Heathrow, working with a partner. And I think that's the other piece as well. It's working much more in partnership. I go back to what I said about that collaboration, which was fantastic. We're working with other partners, both truckers and handlers in other locations, to do more together, because go right back to what I started with, talking about those jigsaw pieces, trying to fit those back together. We need other parties to engage with us to make sure that eventual jigsaw puzzle that we end up with is complete, and we can do that now with partnerships as opposed to just trying to do it on their own.
I think it's good. It's encouraging. Gentlemen, listen, I'm emotional, having worked with you both, knowing you both for so long, and it was always a pleasure. But I think the messages that you've put across and the obvious evidence of how you interact, like you both said, you're competitors, but you might be in different boats, but you're sailing through the same storm. So that brings people together. And I think, how to help and not what I want is what brings everybody together. And we all know team together, everyone achieves more. And that's what we need. And especially going through these trying times. So hopefully, anybody who's listening, anybody who is thinking of coming into the industry, and it's a tough time to come in when so many people are being displaced, but those that have been displaced, please God, as many as possible will come back. And when they come back, they'll see a more streamlined dynamic and togetherness than when they went before. So to keep those people informed and to communicate with them is so important. Well done, boys. I really appreciated the time together, and irrespective whether Arsenal beat Chelsea or the other way around, it's lovely to see the formula, the chemistry between the two of you. And the film I watched before you put that famous frown on, Rob, I don't think any of you would guess, but it was Laurel and Hardy. A really unusual film. I'll tell you, I absolutely enjoyed it, but I don't know why, but you two came straight to mind. And then for any of the older clientele, there's also a little bit of Abbott and Costello there, where the roles are reversed somewhat.
It's all first.
So fair play to you, boys.
Very unkind in suggesting it was Dumb and Dumber, Chris. So
no,
I thought that was appropriate, Robert.
Yeah, it's very true, very true.
And Laura and Hardy is not doing us justice.
John,
it is.
Do you think you got away from Chris unscathed? Normally there's a few more barbed comments and a few more stories come out that makes you a bit nervous. And I think.
And acronyms.
Oh, that's easy for you to say, John.
Right, I have to go.
Yeah, no, listen, lads, well done. Thanks very much. Continue leading in a positive manner and look after the people. And fair play to you. Please, God, everything will be better in 6 or 7 months and we'll have a follow-up.
And you're looking good, Chris, so keep it going.
Likewise, yeah.
Take care, lads.
Take care, Robert.
Cheers. See you guys.
Bye, mate.